The Rockefeller family is one of the richest and well-known dynasties. They've held significant positions in politics, have a great influence on environmental protection, and own some of the most expensive real estate in the world. So, how did they amass and hold on to so much money? Coming up next on The Curious Tube.
Today, there are 6 generations of Rockefellers, with the 21-member 4th generation currently controlling their enormous wealth, headed by the 100-year-old David Rockefeller. But all of their current riches stem from one entrepreneur, John Davison Rockefeller Sr. In 1870, he co-founded what would be the largest oil refiner in the world, the Standard Oil Company. By undercutting the competition and colluding directly with railroads, it became one of the earliest oil monopolies. And in the early 1880s, Rockefeller controlled roughly 90% of all the oil in the United States. But in 1911, the Supreme Court ruled the monopoly illegal. Nonetheless, when Rockefeller died in 1937, he was worth about 1.5% of the entire U.S.'s GDP, which today would be roughly $340 billion. He is considered to be the single wealthiest person in U.S. history. Following this initial influx of wealth, Rockefeller's son, John D. Jr., began an effort to diversify and maintain the goodwill of the family name through philanthropy and real estate. New York's famed Art Deco Rockefeller Center was originally built by Jr., who also donated land to the Museum of Modern Art, contributed to the Met, and other Rockefellers were involved in iconic real estate throughout Manhattan, like the Cloisters Museum and the former World Trade Center towers. The family has also worked in environmental conservation, donating land and establishing more than 20 national parks all around the country. As one of the richest families in the world, Rockefellers have been among the most charitable. The original John D. Sr. contributed more than $500 million, mostly to medical research, leading some to call him the greatest medical benefactor in history. His son, Jr., gave away nearly the same amount to various causes, bringing the total between the two to more than $1 billion by 1960. And still today, the oldest living Rockefeller, David, has personally donated nearly $1 billion to charity. But nobody really knows the full scope of their wealth, as much of it is tied up in real estate and investments. Some estimates accounting for inflation place the Rockefeller worth at $11 billion. But their ability to maintain their wealth is the result of the Rockefeller Trust, where the majority of the family's money has been kept since 1934. A trust committee oversees the use of this money, and family members receive portions of the generated interest rather than dipping into the principal amount. Rockefellers have used their fortune to affect public change and to occupy important political positions. Nelson Rockefeller was a vice president, Jay Rockefeller was a senator, and others have been involved in finance and business around the world. But with such wealth, the Rockefeller family has also been the focus of a number of conspiracy theories, predominantly the idea of a new world order, where a wealthy elite replaced the world's government with a secret totalitarian authority. While we can't say there's much evidence for this new world order, there is plenty of evidence that the Rockefellers are incredibly rich, powerful, and philanthropic. As you know, John Davison Rockefeller is recognized as the richest man in the world in the entire history of mankind. His financial condition in terms of current monetary units was over $300 billion, which is more than 2 times more than the richest man of our time, Jeff Bezos. The 12 rules of John Rockefeller are excerpts collected by his admirers from quotes he ever uttered and published in his autobiographical book, Memoirs. These rules of wealth, John taught his only son, and he passed them on to his 5 sons. Now the Rockefeller dynasty still remains one of the richest dynasties in the world, having united with another richest American family, the Rothschilds. The attitude towards these people may be ambiguous, but it must be admitted that they know how to be rich. They know how to become rich and maintain their wealth, and largely because they follow the 12 rules of John Rockefeller, who, being from a rather poor large family, with zero became a dollar billionaire and the world's largest oil tycoon. So I think there is a lot to learn here. So what are they, the 12 Rockefeller rules? Rule 1. Work less for someone else. The more you work for others, the poorer you become. John Rockefeller was convinced that working for an uncle is a dummy to nowhere. On a personal example, in his entire life he worked for someone else's company for a very short time, and that was from a very early age, at 16 years old. Despite the fact that John quickly grew up the career ladder and, as a young boy, rose from an assistant accountant to the head of a company, he realized that this was a dead-end path of development, quit and became a business partner of another entrepreneur, while borrowing the missing capital at interest. Rule 2. Smartly save money. Look for opportunities to buy at a discount or wholesale. Make a shopping list in advance and only buy from the list. It turns out that the so popular and recommended now shopping lists have their roots in 19 convicts to John Rockefeller. From childhood, John created savings, putting away the earned money in a piggy bank, which allowed him at the age of 13 to issue his first loan at interest. Rule 3. If you are poor, go into business. If you are very poor, get into business urgently, right now. It was in starting his own business that John Rockefeller saw the best way to get rid of poverty. And by his example, he proved it perfectly. Doing business, even if at first on a partnership basis, gave him the opportunity to transform from a poor man to a global oil tycoon. Moreover, he, without wasting time, began to engage in serious business very early. Rule 4. Great wealth can only come through passive income. Create sources of passive income and live your life. Gradually, John Rockefeller turned from a businessman to an investor. He was the owner of a large number of large enterprises that brought him income without much intervention. Only passive income, coming regardless of his efforts, the possibility of which is always limited, can become a source of great wealth. Rockefeller perfectly proved the effect of these rules by example. Rule 5. Think about how to make $50,000 a month. Either more, but not less. This figure appeared for a reason. John Rockefeller thought a rich person cannot spend more than $50,000 a month. This is his limit, so he included just such an amount in his wealth rules. Rule 6. Be sociable and friendly. Money comes through other people. It is very difficult to become rich on your own. Rockefeller was convinced that communication with other people helped to come to wealth, while it is much more difficult to do it yourself. Here you can recall that in his oil company, John Rockefeller gave out salaries to employees with company shares. Thus, they became personally interested in the success of the common cause, because their personal income on shares depended on this. So they worked with maximum diligence, enriching themselves and the owner of the company. Rule 7. Poor people around you always pull you into poverty. Surround yourself with winners and optimists. John Rockefeller understood that the psychology of poverty is inherent in poor people, therefore communication with them does not carry anything constructive, but, on the contrary, psychologically inclines them to their own transition to similar thoughts. Rich people, on the contrary, have the psychology of success. They are able to charge and motivate others with their optimism, therefore communication with such people is always constructive and useful. Rule 8. Shirking is the path to poverty. Do not look for excuses that you cannot take the first step towards your goal. They simply do not exist. Often people try to justify their indecision for some external reasons. The 8th rule of Rockefeller's wealth says that there can be no excuses for this case, and by inventing them, a person only condemns himself to poverty. Rule 9. Study the biographies and thoughts of the richest people. The richest people in the world have proved by their own example how you can achieve success, so their stories and thoughts can always be used as the rules of wealth, a good example to follow. Actually, these 12 rules of John Rockefeller are just such a case. Rule 10. Dreams are the main thing in life. A person dies when he stops dreaming. John Rockefeller was convinced that dreaming is not only not harmful, as the well-known saying goes, but also useful and even necessary. It is the dreams and goals set based on dreams that lead a person to wealth. By the way, since childhood, John Rockefeller himself dreamed of earning $100,000 and earned as much as $1.4 billion. Rule 11. Be selfless and help people. Give 1,096 of your profits to charity. John Rockefeller was a philanthropist all his life. From early childhood, he donated 1,096 of his earnings to the church, later took up financing and other charitable projects, and in his old age gave about $500 million to charitable needs. Rockefeller recommends always providing help to those who need it. Rule 12. Having created a business system, enjoy the money you have earned. The last rule of wealth by John Rockefeller means that it is pointless to save money, just like that you need to use it for your own good, enjoying it. Wealth should make a person content and happy, otherwise, it has no meaning. These are the 12 rules of wealth by John Rockefeller. Take note and apply in life. After all, this person can be considered one of the best authorities in achieving wealth, and judging by the level of financial condition, then the best.
Thanks for watching. Give this video a thumbs up if you want to see more videos from this channel. If you knew of any useful information on this topic, let me know in the comments below. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button and notifications icon for more useful information and tips from The Curious Stew.